That was a ride. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you see someone like me, what's the first thing that crosses your mind? What would you call someone like me? Handicapped, impaired, disabled? Have you ever stopped to think why? Why do we use these words? What impact, if any, do they have? These words carry very different meanings. An impairment is the actual structural or functional abnormality. For example, for me, my impairment is my spinal cord injury. A disability is the inability to perform a task normally as compared to the average population because of that impairment. Once again, for me, my disability is that I'm unable to stand or walk because of my impairment, my spinal cord injury. A handicap is the inability to fulfill a societal or environmental role because of this impairment. My handicap should be that I can't be a firefighter or a lifeguard because I can't perform those tasks, I guess normally, wherever you would say that. As a society, we use these definitions to compartmentalize and structure our view of individuals with impairments. Before a person even opens his or her mouth, our idea of what they can or cannot do is largely already made up. Limits on their abilities automatically surface in our minds. Think about it. Have you ever been inspired or amazed by a wheelchair user who became a professional athlete or who fathered children or, in my case, became a doctor? Why are we astonished by these individuals? Are they the exception, or are we the ones placing limits on their abilities? Maybe we are the ones emphasizing the handicap and in turn creating the impairment. For the first 22 years of my life, I was completely oblivious to these definitions. I had no obvious physical impairment. I used to lift weights, run, bike, swim, break dance, do crazy things with my friends. I used to love pushing my body to the limits. Then in 2009, when I was just 22 years old, everything changed. I woke up 2 weeks after a car accident with my family. I had suffered a T2 complete spinal cord injury, which meant that I was completely paralyzed with no sensation or movement at all from upper chest down. I had had a severe traumatic brain injury. The term traumatic means that it was due to a physical injury. And the term severe is based off a brain injury classification scheme from mild to moderate to severe. And my condition carried a very poor prognosis. Everything had changed. My whole life was totally different. At first, I refused to accept it. Every cell in my body believed that this was just temporary, and I would soon be walking again and able to move and able to feel again. Couldn't even imagine anything else. Though my impairment, my spinal cord injury, and my disability, the fact that I was unable to walk, were obvious, my family and I did not let it become a handicap. We did not let it prevent me from doing the things I wanted. For myself and for my family, it was never about if. It was simply about when and how. So I made the decision early on to continue my goal of becoming a doctor. Looking at me, you wouldn't be able to predict my biggest obstacles. My biggest obstacle was overcoming the inherent bias of my colleagues, strangers, and even my friends. Throughout medical school and into my training as a resident physician, I've been treated differently. Before my accident, no one doubted that I could do whatever I wanted to do. I believed that there was an infinite number of possibilities and choices out there for me, just like there is for everyone in this room. As far as anyone could see, there was nothing wrong with me. After my accident, things changed. The late boxing champ Muhammad Ali said, "It isn't the mountains ahead to climb that wear you out. It's the pebble in your shoe." It's the little things that slowly, almost innocently, brought me down. I've been patted on the head like a child. People have told me how sorry they are that I'm in a wheelchair and that this happened to me, as if this is the worst thing in the world and that I need it to be fixed. People have told my wife how she's a hero and how amazing she is, even though they've never even met her or know all the awesome things she's accomplished, but simply because she married someone who's paralyzed and in a wheelchair. Some people who don't know me assume that she's my caretaker, not my wife. Sometimes when people are standing around and talking in a group, they forget that I'm there and just ignore me. One attending physician I had in medical school saw the struggles I was going through and told me I should consider a different profession. Being treated as below others had a peculiar effect on me. It drastically decreased my self-esteem. I ended up believing and acting as though I was below others. A handicap had been created. I didn't perform as well as I could, and I was not the doctor I could have been. In medical school, I didn't participate or talk in our small groups where we were supposed to work through cases and problems together. When I was in residency, instead of taking charge and acting like the doctor I was, I would roll into a corner and watch the attending physician interact with the patient. I didn't feel like my voice had any value. It looked like I didn't know anything. My professors and my attending physicians expressed their concerns, but it just made things worse. I felt weak, like I wasn't whole, like I didn't deserve to be there, no matter how much I tried. Then I got to work with an amazing person, an attending physician who cares mostly for patients who are born with various physical impairments, including spina bifida, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy. But they continue to live their life. They found a way. Things weren't about if, they were about when and how. When I worked with this physician, he treated me unlike anyone else had. To him, I was just another doctor in training. I was his colleague. He trusted me. He recognized and told me that my knowledge was exceptional, contrary to even what I believed. He had a practice that was away from the hospital, and early in the morning, he would leave me in the hospital to take care of the patients and any issues by myself. By believing in me and treating me as his equal, he was unintentionally empowering me. Suddenly, I started doing very well. My biggest impairment is not my spinal cord injury or that I'm paralyzed. My biggest impairment ended up being low self-esteem, which I didn't even know I had. It was not created by physical constraints. It was created by mental constraints. By the way people talked to me, doubted me. By treating me as though I was not on the same level as others, A handicap was created in me by others and by my own self. It then manifested impairments which I had never known, insecurity and a lack of confidence, which then disabled me. Had I not been treated as though I had a handicap, these impairments would never have been realized. I have seen this countless times with my patients. What is it that allows some of us to face challenges and not let them break us, but instead rise above, using whatever we are left with? Some of this may, of course, be attributed to our nature, the characteristics with which we are born. Equally, if not more importantly sometimes, I believe it is how we are natured, how we are talked to, and how we are treated that creates us and makes us who we are. Willpower, courage, grit, these may not be things we are born with, but they have to be developed and encouraged. Thus, we are all capable of great things. One of the most prominent members of our society with a physical impairment, Stephen Hawking, recently passed away. In 2007, he took part in a zero-gravity flight that allowed him to experience weightlessness. When asked why he took such risks, he said, "I want to show that people need not be limited by physical handicaps as long as they are not disabled in spirit." Listen to that. As long as they are not disabled in spirit. This is one of the most intelligent human beings to have ever lived. And he perfectly explained the major challenge that we face. Your impairment may be something that others can see or something that you can hide. The only difference between me and most of you is that you can see my impairment. So you see how I'm broken and treat me like I'm broken. I challenge you to break through your own internal biases that you may not even think are there. When you see someone who's in a wheelchair, instead of feeling sorry for them, empower them. We have made great strides as a society, but we have a long way to go. We need to make our workplaces and our colleges more accessible, our playgrounds and our places of recreation more inclusive, our transportation easier. But all of this starts with changing our perceptions. Remember, when you leave from here, the way you interact with others will have a profound effect on them. Choose your words, actions, and attitudes carefully. When you interact with each and every person you come across, you have the choice to disable or enable them. Choose to enable. Thank you.